All right. You ready to go, Jason?
Let's do it.
All right. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Getting Started with TechSmith Camtasia. So, my name is Ryan H. I'm an instructional designer on our customer education team here at TechSmith, joined by my coworker, Jason Vlad, also an instructional designer, master trainer on our customer education team. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, Ryan, and hello to everybody joining us out there in webinar land.
All righty. So Jason is going to be presenting the session today, which you guys are in good hands there. He's going to be walking you through the basics of getting started with Camtasia. The session will be approximately 45 minutes, give or take, but we'll also end the session with some Q&A to try and answer as many of your questions as possible. Jason will be using a Windows PC today for the demonstration. But the good news is we have some Mac folks in our chat or in our Q&A room ready to help answer those questions. So if you are on a Mac or maybe even using an older version of Camtasia, it's not a problem at all. We will try and point out any differences and so forth throughout the session. I do have a couple housekeeping items to cover before we hand it over to Jason. First one, this was in the pre-roll slides, but this webinar is being recorded. You will get a copy sent to you in a follow-up email tomorrow with a link to the recording, as well as a couple other resources in that email. You can rewatch something. So if there's something that Jason covered today that you didn't quite get, you can rewatch it at your own pace, rewind it, even share it with a friend, family member, coworker, whoever you think might find it helpful. The next thing has to do with your questions. So we are using the Q&A feature inside of Zoom webinar. And this is, you guys have already found it, I think, when you were sharing where you're calling in from today. We have a outstanding team of TechSmithies ready to answer your question. We have Alyssa, Mackenzie, Brooks, Stephen, Jason, Dave, Troy, and Troy. And you guys are with a premier group there that are ready. They've been stretching out their fingers. They're ready to type and answer your questions. So keep them busy today. So we'll also try and save some of those questions throughout. We'll post them to Jason to answer live, and we'll have some at the end as well. So there's a link to this document at the bottom of this slide. I'm actually going to paste that in to the chat right now, so you guys can actually click on that and have that access now. This will also come in a follow-up email tomorrow. So with that, Jason, I think you're going to talk a little bit about the agenda today, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, Ryan, and in the interest of also pasting something in the chat, I do have one extra slide that I slid in under your nose, and that is I'm in the middle of a project where I'm trying to figure out the best way to make learning content for our team to help all the users out there in the world. And if you're interested in helping me out, maybe having a conversation with me and members of the customer education team, I'm going to put a link in the chat as well. There's an off chance that if you match up with what we're trying to do, that I might be able to offer a private training session for you and or your organization. So if you're interested, that link is in the chat as well. But as Ryan mentioned, today's Getting Started with Camtasia. Here's the agenda that we're going to go through. We're going to cover the complete video creation workflow from recording all the way to production. We'll talk about a few of the editing features and basically play around with the recording to show you different capabilities within Camtasia and some tips and tricks from myself, from Ryan, and other members of our team along the way. We're going to definitely show how to get that video out of Camtasia and into the hands of your users or your viewers to make sure that they are able to consume that content. And then throughout the session, and especially at the end, we hope to leave time in the presentation for the many hundreds of you that are here to ask some questions along the way. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to prepare our screen for recording. And what does that mean? Well, let's turn off my camera so that I can utilize most of the screen here. When we talk about setting up our screen for recording, there's a couple things I mean. One, if you notice my screen here, it is completely blank wallpaper here, aside from the Camtasia logo. This is just to remove any clutter, anything that's in the way or something that might draw attention away from the content that you're looking to show. You can do this on Windows machines by right-clicking on your desktop, choosing View, and to hide or show desktop icons. So if I click on this, you'll actually see I've got a few icons sitting on my desktop, but I can simply hide them by going to View and deselecting show desktop icons. It just gives a nice clean interface ready for presentation. The other thing I tend to do, and we do this when we create our tutorials, is we change the display settings and we scale our screen up a little bit. So if I bring the settings over here for this particular monitor, I've actually got it scaled up to 125%. Normally it's sitting at 100, but we do 125 to 150% because it makes everything a little bit bigger and easier for you to see. As a matter of fact, when we do this, when we get into Camtasia itself, you'll see the editor and the recorder in a much larger, clearer place for you. Other things you want to think about when you're setting up your screen is turning off notifications. We all tend to have programs that are open, like your email or a chat client. We use Slack here at TechSmith. I just went through and turned off those notifications as well to make sure that nothing is going to pop up on my screen that I'm not ready for, that I then have to edit out later on. So I want to make sure the screen is set up for the best possible recording. Included in that is if you can record in a quiet environment, that's helpful. I'm in my home office with the door closed and a sign on there to tell the kids and my dog, if she can read, to not bother me while I'm doing these recordings. All these things are great pre-roll, pre-work to set yourself up for success so that you do not have to worry about editing those sorts of things out later. So the video we're going to record today that we're also going to edit on is something pretty simple. We're going to go to the TechSmith website and we're going to show people how to find the tutorials on our website. So not only will it help you to show you where tutorials are located, but it also gives us a really great baseline project to work with to make sure that we can edit it and make it really have a high value of rewatchability and value for sharing that information. So let's start by opening up Camtasia. And when we launch Camtasia, we're using Camtasia 2021, just released just a couple months ago. We're going to start in a place that Ryan typically starts. I don't typically start this way, but I'm going to take a nod from Ryan, and we're going to start with a brand new project. So when we open up a new project inside of Camtasia, it's going to launch the editor for us in a blank, empty state so that it's ready for our creation. So once that launches, we're going to do something that seems innocuous, but it's actually really, really helpful. And that is we're going to start by saving our project. We're going to go to File and Save. And we're going to give this project a name. In this case, we're just going to call this Camtasia Tutorials. And one thing I wanted you to note is that with the new version of Camtasia, there is a box over here that's checked by default that says Create Standalone Project. This means it's going to create a TSC project folder where everything that we're going to do from this point on is going to be stored. So I want to make sure I take note of what I named the project and where I'm storing it. In this case, just in my Camtasia folder within my documents. And when I hit Save, it's going to tell me that, hey, project files can only be opened with Camtasia. And it's going to rename my project up here at the top. It's no longer going to say untitled. It's going to give it an identity, which is really, really helpful. So from this point, once we have this project saved and ready to go, I'm going to start with a screen recording. So we're going to click the record button. The editor is going to shrink down and we're going to get presented with this. This is the Camtasia recorder. I usually don't go over all of this, but I'm going to give you a quick tip here with the recorder. I always ask myself 3 questions before I start a recording, and those 3 questions go along with the parts of the recorder itself. The questions are, what do I want people to be able to see? Do I want them to see me? And can they hear me? So let's answer the first question. What do I want them to be able to see? In this case, I'm going to record a full screen recording of this screen, screen number 1. I do have other options down here underneath the drop-down menu, but for today, we're just going to worry about screen number 1, which is the content that you're seeing on the screen right now. The second question is, do I want them to see me? And I think today I do. I'm going to turn on my webcam. I'm going to make sure it initiates because I have a couple webcams plugged into the computer here, but this is my primary one. As a matter of fact, you can see me set up right here. Nice looking. I hope I'm looking okay. Got my lighting all set. This is the webcam I'm going to record with during my screen recording with Camtasia, because if you're not aware, Camtasia can record your screen and your webcam and your spoken voice all at the same time to help kind of keep things in sync while you're demonstrating your process. So we've answered 2 questions. What do I want people to be able to see? Do I want them to see me? And the third, and I think one of the most important things is, can they hear me? So right now I'm speaking into a microphone. I actually have several microphones plugged into my computer, but the one I want is the one that's checked here at the top, my AT2020. And I know Camtasia is recognizing it because I can see the audio gauge jumping up and down as I speak into it. So spoiler, I've made a few videos in my life, so I know where I want my microphone set up, but generally speaking, you want it not in direct line of your mouth, but do a couple test recordings to see how your microphone sounds to you based on the videos you'd like to make. There is a fourth option here in the recorder that's for system audio. So system audio is any sounds that would typically come through your speakers if you're looking for error tones or background sounds. I know my video today doesn't include any background noise, any system audio that I need, so I'm going to leave that toggled off for right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the red record button. Camtasia is going to give us a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and then it's going to start recording. Now, before I hit record, there's something you want to know. With Camtasia 2021 on the Windows side, if I hit the record button, this recorder is actually going to disappear and it's going to be replaced with an in-process recording system. It's going to have the recorder there. I'll see my webcam, I'll see my mic, but it will be masked. That means while I can see it on my screen, it will be hidden in the recording itself. The other thing I could do is I could take my recorder and move it to the other screen because I happen to be working in a 2-monitor setup. For today, I'm going to go ahead and click the record button after I move it over to the other screen so that it's out of sight, out of mind for myself. And what we're going to do is walk through how to find those tutorials on the TechSmith website. So once I make this recording, we'll take that recording that we just made, we'll bring it into the editor automatically inside of Camtasia, and then we'll start working on our next set of edits. So let's make that first recording. And then before we do our first set of edits, Ryan, we'll stop and see if there's any questions that may have come up. Here we go. Hi, everybody. This is Jason. Let me show you how to find tutorials on the TechSmith website. First, you're going to visit techsmith.com in your favorite web browser. At the top of the screen, locate the support menu, and then click on Tutorials. This will bring you to the tutorials and training page on techsmith.com, where all of the products we make are listed. Today, we're most interested in learning a little bit more about Camtasia, so let's click on the Camtasia icon. Here, you'll be brought to the redesigned Camtasia tutorial page. At the top, you're going to have a 5-video series called Learn the Basics, which will allow you to quickly get into Camtasia and learn the basic information that you need to get started. Below that, there is a series of learning paths, everything from a Getting Started series, which would open up and allow you to watch a series of videos for the basic functionality of Camtasia. We also have a Dive Deeper editing session that has a series of videos that have been curated for you, as well as videos that are tied specifically for using Camtasia in the workplace. And when you're ready, or you need a little bit more of information, you can scroll down here to the bottom to the All Tutorials section and learn all about functionality inside of Camtasia, including animations, stitching media, and even how to make your first tutorial video. I hope you found this information useful, and thanks so much for watching. All right, we're going to stop the recording. And that recording, both the camera and the screen recording, is going to be brought here into the editor. And just for me, I'm going to save my project. I'm just going to hit File and Save. Of course, I could always use the keyboard shortcut of Control-S to get us in a state where we're ready to start editing. But before we do that, Ryan, has there been any questions that have come in from you or the team that we could address on anything we've covered so far?
I do have a few of them that I think I can pass along now. First off, AC was asking something like, when I turn the webcam on, I do not see my image. What am I doing wrong? And I'm not sure if it might be that they may have the webcam already being used by another program, possibly. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, to be honest, that's what happens to us, especially in the world we're in now, where we're in Zoom recordings and stuff like that. It's possible that that webcam is already being initiated or utilized by another program. What I would do is first check to see if there's any other program that's using your webcam, maybe something in the background that you weren't aware of, and then try it again. Or sometimes it could be as simple as unplugging and replugging that webcam in. That happens with my DSLR quite often. If I restart my computer, it needs a secondary reset, so to speak. But that would be the first two things I would check to make sure it's either not being used by something else or see if it needs to be plugged back in.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
John asked a question. He said, you used to be able to disable the record countdown, the 3, 2, 1. Is that still possible in Camtasia 2021?
Still possible inside of Camtasia? Certainly. Let's pull up the recorder here. Actually, right here in the recorder itself, there is a tools menu at the top with an options menu. Right here, there is a check mark that says show recorder countdown. You can deselect that whenever you want. Be aware that is a new release inside of Camtasia 2021. So if you are in Camtasia 2021, you want to go to the help menu, go to about Camtasia. The newest build is 21.0.5. If you don't have that, you can simply go back to that help menu and check for updates, and you should be able to pull that newest version down.
So one more quick question. I'm not sure, Jerome, something like that. I'm not sure how you pronounce the name. Sorry if I butchered that. Can we also remove the webcam recording after the video? And that's probably something you're going to show coming up, correct?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because we're going to start by doing some editing that includes a webcam. So let's discuss that right now. So once we're here inside the editor, we have 2 tracks that are currently existing in our project. Track number 2 is our webcam and our spoken audio, and track number 1 is the screen recording. The first thing I tend to do is make what I call our wholesale edits. And wholesale edits is just a term I've used. I don't know why I use that. I think it's just easier, is to go through and remove any significant errors, hiccups, coughs. Perhaps someone came barging into my office while I was recording and I hear the door slamming or the dog barked or the doorbell rang or something happened. For me, I'm going to look at this recording and see that it's 1 minute and 23 seconds long. And I know there's some trimming and cleaning up I could do. For example, I can see in the video that there's a gap from here to here where I wasn't talking. And I'm assuming it's a page load time, right? So let's play this back real quick by hitting the space bar. And then click on tutorials. Yep, it's most definitely load time. So what I tend to do is I give it a second or so after I stop speaking. I use the selection tool on the timeline. And I make a ripple delete or a cut by clicking the scissors button here on the toolbar icons here. When I click on that, it cuts that section out. It took 2 seconds off of my video, but it cleaned it up and made it seem like that load time happened almost instantaneously. And then click on tutorials. This will bring you to the tutorials and training page. So I can go through and do that a couple of other times. Like here, I have a load stage where it's taking a second to load the page, and I'm just going to cut that section out as well. And then it looks like at the very end. I hope you found this information useful, and thanks so much for watching. So I've got a little tail end here that I can trim off. So wholesale edits for me are anything, like I said, that are grievous errors, giant gaps, information that doesn't need to be in the primary video that I can edit out really quickly. Now, that being said, the next thing I tend to do is edit the webcam. So the answer to, I think it's Jerome or Jerome, I apologize. If I no longer want my webcam, I can delete it from my recording. However, when Camtasia records your webcam, it also records your audio and bakes them both together. So you'll see that not only is the webcam here on track number 2, but you can see the WAV files from the audio as well. If I no longer wanted my webcam, I could do one of a couple things. I could right click on that media and separate the audio and video and then just delete the video track. Or I could just change its opacity from 100% down to 0. And then my audio is still there, but the webcam has, in essence, disappeared or become transparent, so you can't see it anymore. So when we produce that video out, it is no longer visible to the for the end result. Hopefully you can utilize one of those 2 options. But for me, we're going to start by editing that webcam. First, I'm going to bring the webcam and bring it to full screen here, because I addressed the camera directly when we started our video. Let's play that back for just a second. Hi, everybody. This is Jason. Let me show you how to find tutorials on the TechSmith website. First, okay, so at this point, I start talking and my eyes shift away from the camera to my screens because my camera is set up right between my two monitors. And what I think I want to do is I want to take that webcam and drop it into the corner, kind of like where it started. It's also called picture-in-picture or PIP. So what I would do is I would start an animation at this point by going to my animations tab and going to animations and choosing a custom animation and dragging that down here onto my webcam timeline. I'm also going to zoom in just a little bit to give myself a little bit more of a detailed view. Now, to animate that webcam, right now I've added the animation. Nothing's going to happen until I tell Camtasia what to do with that animation. The easiest way to do this, double click on the head of the animation, of the arrow itself, and then make your adjustments to your video. So for me, I might shrink the size down a little bit, drop it down into the corner, and I can do lots of other things with this. Like for me, I'm going to probably crop it a little bit and make it a little bit tighter of a video space here. And then I'm going to utilize something new in Camtasia 2021 under the visual effects, which is called corner rounding. I'm going to add corner rounding onto this as well and make subtle adjustments to the radius to make it turn into kind of like a hole punch. So no longer am I stuck with those squared off looking webcams. I can give it a little bit more of a personality. In fact, I can give it so much personality that I could also add something called motion blur, which gives the sense of movement when it animates down to that corner. So if I slowly scrub this back, you'll see that it gets a little blurry, which gives it that sense of motion on the way down to the corner. And I don't even like where that is. So I'm going to move it over a little bit. I might even tilt it on its y-axis here a little bit and tilt it in just a little bit. Well, let's tilt it in a lot more. How about negative 35 degrees? There we go. So what I've done is I've taken this full screen web recording of my webcam and then animated it to go down into the corner. So let's see what that looks like. Hey everybody, this is Jason. Let me show you how to find tutorials on the TechSmith website. First, you're going to visit techsmith.com. All right. So that gives me an idea of how to move things down. Someone is asking if I would increase my pointer size. And you know what? Certainly. I can do that on the fly. Thanks, Joe. So now we have a much bigger pointer, so you should be able to see it much better on the screen. All right.
Hey,
so Ryan.
Hey, sorry about this. I don't mean to interrupt you, but Kay asked a pretty timely question that we didn't address early on, asking about syncing up your mouth with the voice that's coming. And it has to do with just like running this through Zoom. Can you kind of explain that?
Sure. So good question, Kay. So when I'm playing this back, there's a good chance that my mouth movements and my audio is not matching up. I rest assured it's matched up perfectly on my end, but we're also playing a video back through Camtasia as well as broadcasting it live through Zoom. Zoom tends to drop frames, which looks like makes things seem like they're out of sync. When this is produced, it is actually perfectly in sync. It looks the way it's supposed to look and it sounds the way it's supposed to sound. That's just a side effect of doing these through a webinar software. So I apologize about that. Not a lot I can do about it, but I appreciate you asking and making sure that's not something that we possibly did here to get things out of sync. So good question. Okay, so we have now animated my webcam down to the corner. It only took a second or two to do all of those actions, and all of a sudden we've already added some polish to this video. Don't worry, we're going to add a lot more. The next thing I want to do is I want to draw attention to certain parts of my screen. And I think right here is when I start talking about going to your favorite web browser. First, you're going to visit techsmith.com in your favorite web browser. Okay, so there's a good chance I can rest assured that people that are watching this video have probably been to a web browser before, but I can't guarantee that. And it's always helpful to add second parts of learning, like a different modality, both audio and visual, to make sure a concept is shared. In this case, I say visit techsmith.com, but I think I want to help by showing techsmith.com. So to do that, we're going to use zooming in within Camtasia. So I'm going to click on my screen recording itself. We're going to go back to that animations tab. And instead of using animations, we're going to go over to zoom and pan. And when you have zoom and pan on the screen, you're able to make adjustments to where the focus is on your screen. So in this case, I'm going to click and drag up to the upper left-hand corner to focus in on the web address itself. So at this point, I have an animation that is zoomed up to the upper left-hand corner to show that web address. So not only does the webcam drop to the corner, but the screen zooms up to the upper left-hand corner. At this point, I can rest on my laurels that TechSmith.com is what's being referenced. I could also add things to it like an arrow. I could add maybe another sketch motion callout, something to trace around it. But I'm actually going to use one of my favorite annotations inside of Camtasia, and that is the Spotlight tool. So to find that, we're going to click on the Annotations tab over here on the left. And then the fourth option across the top is kind of the blurs and special annotations. The second option is the Spotlight tool. And you can tell that I like it a lot because I've actually clicked the yellow favorite arrow and it's in my favorites menu. But to add a spotlight, I'm going to click it and drag it over here onto my canvas. And then I'm going to make an adjustment to it to make sure it's only spotlighting what I want it to. One of the things I love about the Spotlight tool is when you apply it to a project, one of the properties over here in the properties panel, when you click on the Spotlight tool, is its intensity. So I can actually darken the rest of the screen. I usually go somewhere between 75 and 85% to make sure that it looks nice and clean. And as a matter of fact, I could add a couple of other things to it, like just add a bit of rounding to it if I wanted to give it a nice clean look. I also, because that spotlight's going to just show up on the screen pretty harshly, I can add something as simple as a transition to it, like a fade, to make sure that it's a nice, clean transition. So let's grab a fade, and we'll fade it in and out right on the screen. So we've done a couple of animations, a couple of edits here. Let's start by scrolling through and scrubbing through. We've got the webcam in the corner. We've zoomed into the upper left-hand corner. We've added a spotlight with a fade in. And then we're going to actually start addressing something else on the screen. So let's play this back live. Be aware, if there's any out of sync looking video, it's typically due to the webinar software itself. Find tutorials on the TechSmith website. First, you're going to visit TechSmith.com in your favorite web browser. At the top of the screen, locate the support. So then I start referencing other parts, like at the top of the screen, locate the support menu. And then when I do that and click on tutorials, it's actually off the screen because I'm already zoomed into that upper left-hand corner. So when I get out of this fade, I think what we're going to do is we're going to actually pan over and give a little bit more clarity and point of reference to the center of the screen. So we'll select our screen recording again, go over to the animations tab, and we're going to make an adjustment where we zoom out just a little bit, and we're going to shift the focus over to the center of the screen. And as soon as I did that, it added an animation to my screen recording as well as my webcam. I don't need it to do anything to my webcam, so I'm going to delete that so that I always stay in the corner. But now when that fade out happens, the focus is drawn over to the center of the screen where the rest of the action happens at the beginning of this video. Now, someone had asked if I could increase the size of my mouse in the presentation today so that you could see it. Let's actually talk about what that looks like here in the presentation itself, in the video. In the video, the mouse is pretty tiny, but it's because I recorded this with Camtasia, I actually have access to the metadata and the properties of that mouse, that pointer. What I need to do is simply click on the screen recording itself. We'll go to where we can see it here. And I can make an adjustment to the mouse itself. So there it is on the screen. I just need to go over to my properties panel, choose the pointer itself, and scale the mouse up a little bit. Let's make it 250%. So now it's nice and big on the screen itself. Okay. Let's see here. We'll remove that animation. And there we have the panning over and a nice big mouse that we can see what's happening on the screen. There we go. So we've made a couple of edits so far to our video to both increase the clarity and to make it a little bit more entertaining, because frankly, a static or a very basic screen recording with no other action other than someone's mouse moving around makes for sometimes a tough video to watch, especially if you're trying to consume content. With the edits we've made so far, it allows us to zoom in, pan around, and make some changes based on that content. So we made a cut earlier, which allows us to switch to the tutorials and training page that shows all of our products. But as you can see right now, part of that screen is cut off. So we could add another pan or another zoom state where we could just zoom out a little bit to see the majority of the screen. Remove the one from the webcam. And now we've added quite a bit to add clarity to this recording. So Ryan, there's a lot more we can go through here in terms of some of the tools, but I wanted to know if any questions have come in based on some of the edits I've made so far.
I do have a couple questions for you. You had right at the beginning, you were doing some deleting. You were kind of making a selection and you were clicking the scissors to do a ripple delete.
Yep.
Can you, and I don't know if you covered this, but can you talk a little bit about the difference between a ripple delete and just hitting the delete key on your keyboard, what that does?
We can certainly do that. So if I make a selection on the timeline and I perform a deletion by just clicking the delete key on my keyboard, what happens is Camtasia does what you wanted it to do. It removes that content within the selection tool from your timeline, but it also leaves a significant gap where nothing is happening, right? There's no audio, there's no visual because I removed that from the recording itself. Let's go ahead and click undo on that. The difference between delete and a ripple delete is when you actually, it's also called a cut, but if you right click in the area or make a selection and hit the cut button, it's still going to remove that content from the timeline, but then it's going to take everything to the right of the end of the selection and it's going to move it back to the left to meet the section that was not cut off. And it's going to stitch that media together so it looks like one continuous recording. So if I hit the cut button here, all that content's been moved over to the left. And if I move the playhead over a little bit, you're going to see little stitched sections of media there where the two pieces were brought together. So the biggest difference between delete, which is to remove everything out completely, and ripple delete or a cut is that delete leaves a gap, which might be what you want because you're going to insert something there later, while ripple delete brings everything over and together, stitches it together nice and neat.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Another question with the webcam. So you've shown how you can adjust the webcam, you can move it, and so forth. Can you hide it entirely and then maybe bring it back later if you want?
Sure. So right now we have it brought down into the corner, right? We have it sitting down here. Maybe we don't want it on the screen right now. The easiest way to hide it, so to speak, is to make sure the webcam is selected. The way I typically do it, Ryan, you might do it a little differently, but I add a custom animation right onto the webcam timeline. And at the end, I simply change its opacity from 100 down to 0. So the webcam's actually still there. It's just hiding on the screen. And then maybe I want it brought back here. I can add a secondary custom animation. And this time, instead of it being at 0% opacity, I bring it back to 100%. And then I show up later on in the video. This will bring you to the tutorials and training page on techsmith.com, where all of the products we make are listed. So that's the easiest way I typically do it. Some people tend to have it shrink down, possibly fly off the screen. I think an elegant way of doing it is just to have it fade out and fade back in later on.
Yep, that's exactly the way I typically do it as well. And it just, animations are super powerful. And once you kind of understand, you can add those to your screen recording, your webcam, you can add them to annotations that you add and so forth. So they're really pretty powerful once you kind of get an idea of how to use them. So thank you for that.
You bet. Any other questions as of right now?
I'll ask you this one, your audio. Can you suggest a microphone that you use?
Sure. So what tends to happen is people ask, do I need to go get a fancy new microphone, or can I just use the one that's built into my computer? The answer to that question is yes, both ways. If all you have available to you is the microphone built into your computer, please use that. I'd rather you make the video rather than not make it because you don't have a particular tool. The thing to think about with microphones that are built into like laptops is they usually are sitting on the laptop, which means the fan noise could possibly be picked up, or if you're typing on your keyboard, those kinds of sounds can be captured by that microphone as well. My recommendation is to grab some sort of USB based microphone. It could be a headset. It could be one like I've got one sitting in front of me that's plugged in. I've had this one for years and years and years. Having the USB based microphone is going to up your quality right away, but it's also going to remove the capture of the sound away from the actual computer itself and put it closer to the source, which happens to be your voice. So recommendations are whatever one is available to you. You can spend anywhere from $35 to $3,500. Don't spend $3,500. You don't need to do that. Microphones tend to be one of those things that people who make a lot of videos gradually over time upgrade. Just one of those things where you make the videos you need to make first, and then you upgrade components of your video setup as you go along.
All right, excellent. I do have a couple more questions, but I think I'm going to hold off on them and let you keep going, and we'll ask them a little later.
Sure, sounds great. So at this point, I could continue to edit on the timeline and zoom in and pan around, but there's a couple other things I'd actually like to do. First, I'm going to take a look at the entire project, and the easiest way to do that is to click on the magnifying glass down here on the timeline itself, which is actually going to bring the entirety of my project into view on the timeline. This one is only 1 minute and 18 seconds long, so it's not that much sitting in front of you. So we have that now available to me. What I think I'd like to do is I would like to add an introduction to my video, some sort of slide, some sort of animated introduction. But what happens here is the video, when we move the playhead all the way to the beginning, it just starts, right? We haven't done anything like add something simple like, oh, I don't know, a transition to my webcam at the beginning, which I think I'm going to add right now, just some sort of painted arcs. And since I don't need the screen recording right away because the video starts with me on my full webcam, I can actually crop it until I need it later on. But the video just starts with me talking. I think I need to give it a little bit more context. So here's how I do it. I move my playhead all the way to the left. I hold the Shift key on my keyboard, and then I click and drag the playhead to the right. And what this does is it creates a gap at the beginning of my video, as well as keeps everything that I've added to the video in sync and in place. In this case, the only thing we've really added in terms of callouts is that spotlight callout at about 30 seconds or so into the video. But now I have this large gap where I can add some sort of introductory content. For me, I go to the library in Camtasia because we actually ship a folder called Camtasia 2021. There's also versions for each of the previous versions of Camtasia that has some royalty-free assets built in. In this case, I'm going to use one of the animated intros that comes with Camtasia because they're customizable. Ryan, you know which one I'm going to go with. My favorite one of all time here is the state intro. And what I'm going to do is click on it and drag it down here onto the timeline. What it is it's an animated introduction that has some generic text and some generic colors in place. For me, because I need it to be customized to what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on that content on the timeline and then go over to my properties panel and make some changes based on my needs. So I can change the title to Finding Tutorials. And as soon as I hit enter, it updates that text. And then maybe the subtitle is with Jason. So Finding Tutorials with Jason. I made those changes right on the fly. It happens to be a Camtasia tutorial, so I could leave that logo in place. But if I had another logo I wanted to use, I would just click out of it and import another image. And then I could change the colors and shapes of these triangles if I wanted to. But I actually, I'm not a designer. So I'm going to use one of the themes I have built in, especially this Camtasia color one. And now it's going to find the actual Camtasia colors as needed. And it's going to apply those to my intro. And for me, I think I am going to change out the logo. So I'm going to go to import file. Let's see. I think I have my cartoon avatars of me. So we'll grab me wearing a Camtasia shirt. And now all of a sudden, this animated introduction has the colors I want, the titling I want, and the image that I want right away. Great. So now I have some personality to the start of my video, but I've still got this gap. Ryan, you had a question?
Nope, I'm still good. You're good.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So I need to close this gap, and I can do it the same way that I created it. I'm going to double click on the content that I moved, which snaps the playhead right into place. I'm going to hold the shift key, and I'm going to click and drag me just past the end of this animation. So now the animated intro is going to play, and I'm going to show up with my webcam. Might as well use the content that's already delivered with Camtasia, quick edits, and all of a sudden it's been customized. The other things people tend to like to add is music to their projects, and we actually have shipped music with Camtasia as well underneath the music tracks folder. I could add those in as well by simply, well, let's go with this Highway North one. I'm going to right click and add it to the playhead. So we're going to have some introductory music. And then because I don't want the music drowning me out, which tends to happen by default. Hi, everybody. This is Jason. Let me show you how I'm going to utilize another tool inside of Camtasia, which allows me to keep the music, but also be able to hear my voice, which is underneath the audio effects tab, and it's called emphasize audio. And all I need to do is drag the emphasize audio down to the track that I want emphasized, which in this case is my spoken word. And now the music will ramp down or fade down just a little bit right before I begin speaking. Hi, everybody. This is Jason. Let me show you how to find tutorials on the TechSmith website. So we've made a whole series of edits, including added music that's way too long for our video. So I'm going to crop it down here towards the end. And I'm going to stay with the audio effects and use a fade out to drag that down here to the right so that the music fades out at the end as we're finishing up. I hope you found this information useful, and thanks so much for watching. There we go. So we have taken a 1 minute and 18-second video, added an introduction, added music, edited a webcam, dropped it down into the corner, and made some subtle adjustments in terms of panning and zooming. And to be fair, there's a lot more I could do with this particular video, but I think I'm gonna call this one good. So I'm gonna save it by hitting Control S, and then to get the video outside of Camtasia, there is a share or export menu in the upper right-hand corner. And when I click on that, there's several options that are built in. There's some cloud sharing destinations, Nomia, screencast.com, Vimeo, YouTube. But to be honest, majority of the time, Ryan, I export it as a local file, which then will create an MP4 based on my editing dimensions. And then I can upload that to wherever I would like. And I'm going to actually put this right in the same folder of my project that I just made. So today's was called Camtasia Tutorials. So I'm going to go in that file folder that we just created at the very beginning of our session. I'm going to hit save and then hit finish. And then Camtasia is going to render that video out and place that MP4 in that folder for me to utilize later on or to watch back. Ryan, I'm assuming there's been more questions that have come in towards the end. So I'm going to take a quick sip of water while you prep some questions for me to answer from our attendees.
All right, I will do that. You make this look so easy, Jason. You got this video created with all these animations and the webcam and the audio background music. And so nice work.
Thanks.
Speaking of background music, Sherry asked a really good question. Says, does YouTube block videos that have Camtasia music in them?
So the answer to that question is it shouldn't. All of the music that we have in our library has been cleared as part of the royalties that have been taken care of and all that. On occasion, very rare, but on occasion it does happen, and there is a process by which we can help or link you to how to show that it was sourced from Camtasia. I have not personally experienced that myself, but it probably has happened to people on a rare occasion.
Excellent. So real quickly, you showed how to just export the video as an MP4. So now you can put that MP4 anywhere. You can upload that to YouTube manually.
Mhm.
You can put it wherever you want, right?
That's correct.
Are you done with that video now? Can you go back into the project and keep editing it if you wanted to, or share it out to other places? Or is it just a one and done deal?
Well, it's a great question. So we have the video that's been created, which is this one right here. If we play this back, playing on my other screen. Intro's a little long. Hi, everybody. This is Jason. All right. So we've already seen that video. So the question was, is that video done? Well, that version of it is done. That MP4 is out there and ready to be shared with the world, but the project file stays here. It's still inside of Camtasia, and I can always come back to that folder and open it back up. Like already I'm thinking this intro is just too long. So I would probably come back in and shorten this intro up a little bit, maybe cut a section out of it. But it's still ready to be edited and create different versions. Maybe I want to have the webcam visible the whole time. Maybe I haven't finished and done all those additional animations and highlights and zooms and pans and different things to make this video even more consumable. But no, it is definitely not done. The project file is still available so that you can build on that. The MP4 that we made, that particular version is baked and set to go, but there's nothing that says you can't make an additional version of it and share that out.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining that a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
So you've shown the library to bring things down, like the music and the intros and stuff like that. Patrick asked, can I add my own stuff to the library? Can I build out my own library with things that I had imported or created?
Yeah, yes, you can. In fact, I do that on a regular basis. If I use my drop-down menu here, you'll actually see something called user libraries. I've got libraries for our other products, Audiate. I'm missing my Snagit one. I'll have to find that one. I even have my own personal library that's got content in it for different projects that I'm working on. The way to do that, if you want to create your own library, is to use this drop down and click on the Create New Library button. You can either start one from a blank state, or you can use an existing library as a template to start from. Then to add content to that library, you simply can download assets. You can import them into your Camtasia instance, or if you've created something on the timeline, for example, maybe I want to keep this webcam footage. I can right click on it right on the timeline and choose Add to Library, and then I can have that available for future videos. We've done this here, right? I've got all my TechSmith branding content in here. So I've got all of the Camtasia logos, the Snagit logos. I have our buildings from where our headquarters are when we typically are showing people around and how to find different offices. I have those all there, as well as the colorways for each of our products. I have those available as well inside of my library. So yes, you can create your own library. You can share that library with other people on your team, and you can customize it to your needs.
Nice. Thank you for that. I saw a really cool question coming in saying, if I didn't want to record with my webcam, can I just bring in like a static image, import an image of myself, and maybe have that animate on the screen when I'm introducing myself?
Yep, you can do that as well. Lots of possibilities with that. You do not have to record your webcam, but you can still have some sort of presence. In fact, that's why I have that. That's why I've got that avatar of myself just in case I need it.
Great. Can you show how to import some media into the library, or not library, but just to the media bin?
Yeah, the easiest way while you're in the media bin is to click on this little plus button in the lower left-hand corner. It gives you two options: either import media, which is just going to be sourcing some folder that's on your computer or connected to your computer. So if you have a network drive that's attached, you can pull it from there, or you can click import from Google Drive. So if I click import media and I want to grab, well, some of those avatars that I was just talking about, I can go where they're stored on my C drive. Maybe I want to grab all these, and I click open. It drops them right here in my media bin, and now those are ready for whatever project that I happen to be working on.
Nice. And so as you were adding those, this kind of goes along with some questions that Jill asked, as well as some other people, about multiple tracks. So as you're adding things, sometimes it makes a new track. Can you talk a little bit about the layering and maybe even also included in this, the audio and webcam is connected or in the same track? Can you separate those as well?
Yes. So there are a lot of questions there. So layering works
Sorry.
like this. No, it's totally fine. Totally fine. The way the tracks work is the higher the track number is, the higher the hierarchy, the layering is. For example, my webcam is on track number 2. It's on top of track number 1. That means it is in front of that recording. If I were to insert a track below my screen recording, so now there's an empty track down here, and I move my webcam down there. Now the only time you'd see it is when there's nothing else on the screen. So as soon as the screen recording shows up, my webcam is not visible because it's below it. But to be honest, sometimes I get a lot of tracks going in my projects, and they're hard to keep track of because they're all just labeled with generic track names. You can right click on the track name itself and rename it. So this one might be called, screen recording. And track number 2 is going to be my webcam. Now, Ryan, you had mentioned someone was asking about the audio and the video of my webcam coming together, right? You can right click on those and choose separate audio and video, which breaks it up into 2 separate tracks. But be aware, I can't put those back together unless I group them later on. So if I happen to shift this just a little bit, now the audio and video is going to definitely be out of sync. So I personally do not ever separate audio and video, but it's just not my editing style. That's why it's great to have something like Camtasia where I've got the flexibility to edit the way I see fit. I think that answered the questions. Maybe not.
Yep, I think you did great. Thank you for answering that multiple question there.
Sure. I did see a question that came in from Gail, and that's an eagle-eye question, Ryan. I see it on your document. The question was, hey, when saving that video, Jason unchecked a box. Why not just go with the default setting? Good eyes, Gail. Good eyes. She's talking about when I went to export this video, I picked the dimensions I wanted, and when I hit next, I deselected this button that says organize, produce files into subfolders. So usually by default, all of these boxes are checked. The organize, produce files into subfolders means it's going to put the video where I asked it to, but the subfolder, so let's open that up where it was. As soon as you open up the Camtasia folder, it would have taken the video, which is this video right here, and it would have put it in its own folder inside of this folder. That's just a personal preference. I don't need to have an additional layer of folders there, so I uncheck it whenever I produce videos. These 2 show production results. It's cool. It shows how long it took, the size of the file, maybe the frame rate, the dimensions. I'm not personally worried about it, so I leave that off by default. And then this one, play video after production, as soon as it was done producing, it would have started playing my video. That's just kind of a frustration point during webinars. I just don't need the video playing automatically on me. But great catching that little detail. That deserves a high five. So there is a ton of other editing options inside of Camtasia, Ryan, and we just frankly don't have time to cover them all in this webinar. So we do have upcoming webinars at techsmith.com/webinars that are available. However, if you're inside of Camtasia itself and you need a little inspiration or you want to find out how to do something, underneath the help menu, the second option is video tutorials, and it will take you right to that tutorial page that we talked about before. And maybe you have a pretty good handle on Camtasia and you want to check out this dive deeper section. So this is the section I was talking about before where there's other videos, everything from magnetic tracks to annotations and customizing callouts to smoothing your cursor out. So many different options as well. You have that capability of going in right from Camtasia. Now, as far as further webinars, let's go to techsmith.com. You can either go right up to the top menu that says support and choose webinars, which will take you to this page. This is where you're going to find upcoming webinars. So we have one that was conducted last night by our awesome friends in the marketing department. And then these are the ones that myself, Ryan, and Chandra host for our customer education team. There's one next Wednesday about all things Snagit and PowerPoint. And then I have one with how I made this video in Camtasia, which is my most ambitious webinar to date. It actually requires some homework, but we are constantly updating this page with other webinar options. Ryan, do you want to tease any out that we've got coming? I know I'm going to be doing one on our Audiate program as well. It's for editing and recording audio and bringing that into Camtasia, but that's where you're going to find all of this content as well.
Yeah. Can you also, Jill had asked, she wanted to see a recording of the one with PowerPoint in Camtasia. Can you kind of show where to find those?
Sure. So right below where the registration offering is, there is a button that says previous recordings available in our webinar library. If you click on this button, you will have access to all of the most recent videos and webinars that we've done. The most recent ones should be at the top, and then they're broken down by department and section. So Insights, Snagit, and Camtasia. And I think this is the one she's referring to. Hey, I know that guy, Ryan. This is the how to record PowerPoint with Camtasia and then share your video. So you can then watch this on demand right from the TechSmith website.
Perfect. Well, I think we might want to navigate over to the final slide, unless you have anything else, Jason.
No, we're good to go. Just a reminder that if you are interested in helping us out with my little research style project, that link is in the chat. And if it's not, I'll put it back there momentarily. Appreciate any effort and anybody who is interested. But Ryan, we got that last slide up for you right now.
All right, excellent. So this is just a kind of a final reminder. We are recording this. You will get this in an email tomorrow. We usually say 24 hours, so be expecting this 24 hours from now. You will, inside of that email, you'll also have some additional resources. One of them is to that handout PDF that I had put in the chat earlier. A big shout out to our support team. They are excellent. If you have any technical issues, you can either call and talk to someone live or go to support.techsmith.com and submit a ticket, and someone is with you very quickly, and they can help resolve any issues that you might be having with your computer and Camtasia or Snagit or other programs from TechSmith. When you exit this webinar, you will get prompted with a very short survey. It should take you a minute or less. There is a question there asking about any feedback. What can we do to improve? Maybe suggested topics that you'd like to see us offer for webinars. We read every single comment that you add, so please take some time and let us know how we can do better. And thank you all very much for help or for being here today, giving us time out of your day. I also want to thank the folks, our support team that has been frantically answering questions. There were, I think, 165 questions answered throughout the session. So awesome job. Thank you guys so much for your help. And Jason, back to you for any final words.
No, I was to say thank you, Ryan, for hosting, and to our entire support staff, but especially for people attending. Thanks for taking the time out of your day for asking thoughtful questions, and hope to see you in a future webinar. Have a spectacular day wherever you are.